Time's up. Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins, a.k.a. episode 58 of Biomassed. So, folks, we're going to have an interesting show tonight. We had a lot of things kicking around. We had several would have been, could have been, should have been, and we forgot to call you guests set up for tonight. So right now, we're going to go strip this down to bare bones. It's going to be just the three horsemen of the apocalypse, a.k.a. myself, Xel, and Pokey tonight. And then who knows, we may get hot dropped by people that aren't watching the Bethesda live stream.
I think we can skip the introductions too.
I'm totally on board with skipping introductions. Or I've got one. Let's introduce each other. This should be fun. So
I'm not up for that.
So it's going to be good. So let's see. Pokey, you can introduce Xel or myself. You choose. Sharks or poison?
Oh, I don't know, because you could really trash Xel, but I don't really want to go after you. So we'll just say that the guy above me on the list is the Biomassed official tank fodder. He has been cleaning the treads of my tanks for quite a while. He's very good at laying underneath them and getting them rolled over. Mr. Soraya Xel.
Outstanding. Okay, Soraya, your turn. Me or Pokey?
Wait, don't I have to introduce
He has to do you
so that you introduce Pokey?
If you choose to play the game in that way, yes, that is what you would have to do.
I'm just saying that's how it goes. The person above me on the list is actually crud. We have a guest. This whole thing is now wrecked. But nonetheless,
your ability to adapt to the battlefield is horrendous. I want you to know that.
I know, right?
That's why it sucks to fight a tank.
I just got back in the house like 5 minutes before we started this train wreck. All right. The man with a million voices, Jaysyn Larrisen.
Thank you very much. And the man immediately below me is one of the most lethal players in Dust, whose bitterness and acerbic nature is only exceeded by, nobody. But he's also a font of knowledge and a well-timed guest on the show that was desperately looking for a mic check, and none of us were listening. So with that, I give you Lethal Leither.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing? Is my mic working?
It's working great. Now you have to introduce Pokey.
And here's Cross. Interesting. Pokey, what would I say about Pokey? Well, there's only one thing to say. That little shit.
Legit.
Yeah, that's good.
Very well played, Mr. Lethal. Okay, so on that note, since we've already right through our intros, if you will. By the way, it's a very fun way to do intros. If Cross ever gains the testicular fortitude to come down here, we'll all take a crack at him and just sort of line up and just have a go at him. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a CPM update, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Oculus Rift. Oh, wait, we have a new guest.
Someone say impromptu orgy?
Yes! All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the man above me on the list, but usually never on the top, is the one and the only Cross 2 of CPM1 fame and Logibro extraordinaire. Anybody else with an additive for Cross, please chime in. And that tells you how much you're loved, since we're going to edit out that 5 seconds of silence.
Either that or I'm just exceptionally boring.
We would have to have Zarya
I don't
here
know.
to sing him praise.
I was going to ask if your name's a joke, but then I thought it might be too soon.
Oh.
You could talk about the email address instead.
There are a few things that could be said about that. Yeah. Do that, Pokey.
Well, it is Cross 269, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, there you go. So you can let your imagination run wild with that one.
Oh, goodness
All
gracious.
about the wild imagination.
Well, that's...
Oh, you go in for the wild imagination. Well, you guys are into some deep shit.
Well, I mean, it's Dust. Their crystal balling is the best thing they do, so go for it.
I mean, let's be realistic. We're a good 4.5 minutes into the show. We've already jumped the shark and skied past him in our Fonzie jackets. So
I'm just looking for the laser to put on the shark.
Remember that time when the show only was a train wreck when Jaysyn wasn't here? We've moved past that. We've evolved.
No, you just have no clear understanding of how much coffee I've had today. So this is all going to be clear by the time we circle down to the end of the show. Trust me. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a quick CPM update from Xel and Cross if you want to pitch in. I don't think there's a lot to go over, but what we do want to do is jump into a little bit of CCP related news. Once we get past Zell saying no, he doesn't have anything to say, no matter how many times we coach him to say something, even if it doesn't break the NDA. So we're just going to go ahead and get all our we're not upset with him, we're not frustrated, we're just disappointed thing out of the way. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in game with the comms situation, which if you've been playing regularly over the last week, you're probably well aware of the fact that it's very difficult to A, start a squad, and B, actually talk to anybody in the client voice chat. So we can talk briefly about that. And then I think Zell had some really neat news coming out reference the Oculus program. So could be some pretty interesting stuff that we can kick in there. And then after that, it's kind of a grab bag. It's whatever we want to talk about since we have a zero agenda tonight. And we can kind of just shoot the breeze for a little bit, talk about whatever you want. So with that, Zell, you mind taking it away, brother?
I'm busy at the moment.
Outstanding, and he's useful as always. Hey, Cross, do me a favor. Can you do Zell's job again?
I'm sorry, I was trying to relay our server info to someone, and you asked right at that time, and I'm like, I can't type this and also hold down the talk button at the same time. All right.
You have two hands. So,
he doesn't know
What
that.
do you think?
Don't
What do you think
confuse
he's
the
doing
lad.
with the other one? Come on now.
There were jokes there. There were too many. All right. No, it's been pretty quiet. We're waiting to get the election stuff moving. I haven't heard anything too much more specific than what you guys already know. But that's kind of my big priority. I'm ready to retire, so I'm all gung ho on this election thing. We have not heard yet from regarding the issues with the server, and hopefully we'll hear about that shortly. So,
I kind of I'm just speculating, but it makes you think that something went wrong. Has anyone checked out Eve Voice today? Like in the Eve client?
No,
nobody uses Eve Voice.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Like, if it was broken, it could be broken for years and nobody would know.
Yeah, so maybe that's something to check, because I almost suspect that, like, the service vanished because there was no hotfix, right? There was nothing that should have changed the fact that the interface itself won't present the option to activate voice.
There's a theory that I've thought was a little odd when it was first posed, but over time I've more and more come to accept that it's possibly and probably true, and that is that there's a button somewhere at CCP, and they have to push it every certain period of time, or the game stops working correctly, and sometimes they just don't.
I mean, we actually had that with MAG. Reportedly, they had a server with, like, the actual software had a memory leak, and the only way they knew to fix it, rather than doing it properly, was to reset that server once in a while. So,
well, I do know, on the honest truth side of things, when Eve first launched in 2003, I think it was, Hilmar actually said that someone had to be there at 5 in the morning every day to reseed the market with because it resets all the NPC orders and stuff, and he had to push that button every single day because they didn't have any sort of automated process to do that when the game first launched.
It's kind of impressive. That sounds like something you could just script into a, like, is it cron?
Sure,
like,
this is CCP.
True. I mean, it has to be more satisfying. I hope he actually got, like, a button. And I mean, this was years ago, so it was probably harder to hook it into your computer. But knowing CCP, they would have gone to that effort and, hooked a physical button into a computer 10 years ago. And
it's actually this Rube Goldberg machine where they have to pull a string, and then after like 50 different things, it actually finally, a finger comes down and pushes the button for them, and they have to reset this every day and test to make sure it works, and then they can pull the string to make the server, reset.
That sounds about right.
I think there's... I'm sorry, go ahead, Lethal.
I was just going to say, like, it was probably at FanFest. They probably said it was a feature.
I know that Kane he mentioned earlier before we got on the show that they're trying to run a couple of PCs using Skype chat or like Skype voice. The one thing I can tell you is, like, trying to do third-party comms on a console is just horrendous. There's no good way to.
It relies on. Yeah, you have to have basically a laptop you can set up there, and it's still going to kind of suck.
Cue
And
the
he-
tinfoil about this being a way to force it onto PC.
And Skype, man, I mean, Skype is not great for large numbers of voice participants. It works okay for a few, but after that, it just kind of spirals downhill.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, a lot of people use TeamSpeak or Mumble, like we're doing that. That was my first introduction to third-party comms was TeamSpeak, and there's a lot you can do with it, but the flip side is there are a fair amount of audio cues that are built into the game if people actually listen to the audio in the game. That you can actually they're pretty handy. I mean, I like having the audio up in the game, like the background and like the weapons fire and all that kind of stuff. And it's always good where you can hear somebody charging their rail rifle as they're waiting for you around the corner. That's usually a dead giveaway. So it's
that's one of the things that CCP never did badly. Is the audio design for the game
it's actually quite good.
Very very solid. I mean, they've always been good at design, and I would argue they've always been good at the artwork. It's just the game actually working that seems to be a mite of a challenge for them on occasion.
Speaking of the squad issue, I guess the PSA about that, I don't know who figured this out, but the way to form a squad right now while it's broken is to queue up for a faction warfare match. I'm going to tell you to be a bad Dust citizen right now. Queue up for a fac war match. You'll get put in a war barge. Wait until the last 10 seconds of the war barge timer. Start a squad. Once you get into the game, leave the match. And it took me like 30 seconds after getting into my merc quarters or more, but it finally did pop up with a squad. So at the very least, you guys can know that. I've seen some people around a day trying to quote unquote sell squads, which I thought was classic. I was going to say disgusting, but I should rather say classic. And
there were folks actually making money off that, at least yesterday. So before we go too far into this, I'd like to get a quick intro with Mossellia Delt. He just joined the channel. Moss, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Is my audio levels okay? I didn't get to test.
Yeah,
we're
fine.
Great.
Awesome. Hey guys, I'm Mossellia Delt. I ran for CPM 1. I will be running for CPM 2 as well. I don't know really what more to introduce myself as. I've been on the Biomassed podcast a few times.
Yeah,
welcome back.
Absolutely, man. Great to have you back. So we're just kind of kicking a few things around tonight. It's pretty laid back show. Let's see. Let me skip back. Yeah, we did have some people selling squads yesterday. And interestingly enough, I was like very ragey over the week. I was off work. I took a week off work, just to kind of do some vacation stuff this week. So I had a little bit more time than usual to hop on Dust. And what I noticed was a high preponderance of like 2 versus 12 matches or 3 versus 12, that kind of stuff. And I had several of those. And I even tweeted about it. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So I think that probably explains it.
I don't believe you get ragey.
I get kind of ragey for about 10 seconds, and I'm totally fine because I sort of just have this like chi moment where I begin to visualize like squeezing your neck and your eyeballs popping out, kind of like Schwarzenegger, in that fucking ill-fated, movie about dream sequences in Mars and shit. It works out great.
It's a much better book.
That's what I heard. It's a Philip K. Dick book, right?
Yep.
Yeah, most things in Hollywood that are sci-fi related generally come from Philip K. Dick.
True story.
Okay. So let's see. Anything else on the comm situation or the lack of comm? And by the way, like, did this happen? Did they put a patch out and then this happened, or is this like no precipitating incident whatsoever?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
That's crazy.
As I said, no one pushed the button.
I would say it surprises me, but
Well, usually,
that would compromise your bidder status.
Touche.
Well, honestly, I mean, usually I equate these things to like when I log in and I see the client syncing or whatever, even if it's for a second, there's always in the back of my mind, I'm like, what little Easter egg did they put in there that's going to make the game explode this time? So I just assumed that that's what this was, but I guess not.
I've always said that CCP are really quite innovative in the sense of the game breaking in some kind of mysterious and truly novel way is unsurprising. but contained within that, it is novel. It's always something different. This is pretty distinctive, you know.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The other
Even
thing,
some of the repeated bugs are the same event caused from a totally different source. Like the FAC Warfare screen hang is a repeated thing, but from a new source this time.
oh man, that's gotta suck. There's one other somewhat significant bug that was making its way around. Have you guys checked out the issue with the faction warfare boosters?
I
No,
have not
first I've heard of it.
Apparently, there's been several reports that they're giving you like 100% bonus right now. I don't know if that's a thing, but I've heard at least 3 people tell me that in live comms. At least 1.5 of those 3 I trust, kind of.
That's confidence inspiring
Yep.
there.
Yeah. Heavy vote of confidence.
So I'm probably gonna take 20 lashes later to compensate for my lack of knowledge here. I've never in my life actually activated a faction booster. How much is it supposed to be?
It's 50%, right?
Yeah.
Is it 50?
Yeah, it works just like the SP boosters.
Okay. I mean,
I've never
Yeah.
used a faction
I
booster
don't use
either,
it either, so
so
not that bad. Yeah.
I've actually got quite a few of them stacked up, and I've never put one on because I don't play FAC War enough, or I don't have enough to like put it on for like a solid day and just sit there and play FAC War. But I had at least two fairly good sources last night tell me that, and then it was at least a lot of people made positive. Yeah. We've heard about that sounds in squad, so. It's maybe something interesting to check out, but it sounds like they're acting almost like Omega boosters, more or less, which I don't think was a planned change. I think that it literally might be a boo-boo. Not that I'm beefing about it. If you're taking advantage of it, have at it. Just realize that CCP is a big fan of not saying whoopsies and letting you keep what you got, from their mistake. They're a big fan of taking it back from you. I'll reference you to the numerous times that I've signed into Dust and seen suddenly I had negative SP being accrued.
the inconsistency of the negative SP thing is, again, one of the true fascinations. I've heard of people having that. Never experienced it myself. I kind of wonder what the difference is, right? That's my real
generally
question.
it's because you got extra SP for something, and then you suddenly spent the crud out of it down to nothing, so that when they fix it, you go way into the negatives.
Which literally CCP is the only game producer that I have ever experienced with that does that. Everybody else, they usually say, "Oops, my bad. You got some free SP." But
I don't agree that they should, and the reason why is because everything in a game has a certain amount of value, and that value is created due to player effort. That's the value that it has is directly related to the effort you put in to get it. There's a reason that they don't give you infinite SP, infinite ISK, whatever, is because limitations and limitations are what makes gameplay actually gameplay. They can't just give you everything. And so if someone gets, due to an exploit of the game or a bug that they then decide to significantly take advantage of while it's there, if they don't rescind that, then you've devalued everyone else's actual effort.
Okay, but if it's not an exploit and it's literally just their like CCP's boo-boo, and you're not aware of it, do you actually track your ISK like a bank or your SP like a bank account?
No.
No, you don't. So how is that your fault? Like when you spent what the machine told you? That's not.
But then, so they take it away, and you're in quote-unquote negative SP. Here's another way to think about it. You just got an advance on your skill purchase, because you shouldn't have been able to buy that yet. But it let you, and it didn't actually take the skill away, it just said, oh, you're going to have to catch up to where you were before you can buy something again.
Is it clear that this is consistent?
Yeah.
It's not consistent. It's going to be based on what, CCP feels is appropriate for the situation, at any specific situation.
I mean, Jay's earlier question about being a banker with SP is pertinent here. I haven't tracked my SP as closely as all that over the years, but I've never noticed a fluctuation. I've never been negative, and I've never noticed a severe fluctuation in my available pool, except from the obvious skill respec.
Well, that's the issue with it is you would in fact have to track it like I used to track ISK transactions in Eve. Like I was a very good you know, how do I say this, like a quality amateur day trader in Eve, and you would in as far as SP goes, because it's a continual accrual, then depending on the types of boosters that you had and then how long you've been away from the game versus, you know, when you're signing in and you have like a little log where you check and see where you're at and you can do the math in your head. The thing about SP exchanges, and even IS to a degree, but really the SP exchanges, it's because, I mean, frankly, the numbers changed continually, and you have to track like when you got off, how much time has elapsed, and usually you're not talking about that much. So it would be very difficult, you know, for most people to realize whether they had gained or lost somewhere between a quarter of a million and half a million SP. If they've been playing for any length of time, you know, it would be unusual unless they were really, really being meticulous about tracking it. So they got to that proto suit and they were looking for their 2.4 million SP to do whatever.
I guess the deeper question I'm getting at here is it clear that CCP are actually initiating like global retractions of SP?
Yeah,
Have
they tell
ever
you.
stated that?
Yeah, they do. What they do is, if the last time I remember it happening, it was something. It was a bug with the boosters. So if you were running a booster, you didn't do anything wrong, but there was a bug and it was rolling your SP back. So that was literally a bug fix. Prior to that, I remember there was some issues when the scout suits came out. I think the Amar scout suit, I think the proto Amar scout suit only cost you the SP of like the advanced or something like that. So a lot of people like, oh shit, I'm getting into that. So they jumped into it, only to find out that million and change extra SP was suddenly docked from their account like a week later, and they had to build back up to it. And there's been a couple of other ones, I can't remember what they are, but they were much more isolated.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, you almost have to retract it because it's not a universal thing. It'll be the people that happen to trade into that suit get a big SP boost for not changing that back. So I think if it's a universal thing where everyone got, you know, X amount of SP extra, it can go either way. But in situations like that of Mars Scout where you only certain people would gain that advantage of it not being retracted, that's problematic, and you definitely have to fix that.
You know, the interesting thing, I was sitting there, it kind of ties back in with how you actually accrue SP, and to Zell's point, it's about relative values. I really like the system that they have in. Oh my God, totally drawn a blank. Got Morrowind, help me out. Elder Scrolls. Yeah, I really like that, where it's like you gain skill by doing something. Like, so if you want to get better with plasma rifles, use the plasma rifle more. You know, that kind of thing. I actually like that quite a bit. Or kind of like targeted skills, where you can have like general SP or experience points, if you will, being accrued, but then you get like light weapon specific SP or weapon specific SP or this, that, and the other based on your usage of those things. To me, that's the skill system and the level system they have in Elder Scrolls is, at least for me personally, how I enjoy these type of games. That is probably one of the most interesting ones for me to get into.
And there is a certain intuitive element to that.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's just one of those things that I think would be an interesting take on it. It would certainly be a break from how their current system works, but I think it would go back to Zell's point. It would even sharpen the value of the experience points that you gained.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be opposed to it. I know it's something that it's never been a thing CCP has done. Eve has never worked that way, obviously, and I know it's been brought up many times that people, certain people think it should, and I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, that's what I'm used to in other first-person shooters, and I don't think that there's anything about that necessarily disagrees with the way Dust is meant to be as a game.
Yeah, but here's the question: do you want to really log 100 hours in a dropship?
No, I mean and that's fair too. I think a lot of it comes down to what is the acceleration curve that you put on it. Like using the Elder Scrolls example, I'm not aware of any other game that does it quite like them. So if there are, and you guys have good examples, hop in with it. But like if you want to use like a sword or whatever, you level up fairly quickly. You know, it is an accelerated curve. So you go through the first, you get very very workable with it pretty quickly, but then it takes a while to accrue those additional higher levels of skill or unlocks for that sort of for that sort of skill set or skill tree part anyway. So I think it's just a matter of how much you accrue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty legit way. I mean, it certainly deviates from what we currently have, but I enjoy the progression system for games like Skyrim and Fallout and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a good way to do it. I mean, this also goes back to a whole discussion about is it even in the realm of the possible for them to do basically a skill tree rework, which is somewhat of a separate thing, and then B, actually look at the mechanics of how you work your way through the skill tree. I mean, Zell, Cross, you guys are probably in a better position. Is that even in the realm of the feasible from what you're seeing with CCP?
I wouldn't really expect it anytime soon, just because of Ritate's focus on trying to maximize the value of development hours. So a full ground-up rework would need a really compelling reason.
Well, just the idea of using Unreal Engine 3 to do that, I wouldn't think it would be possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I don't know enough about the technical components of Unreal 3 to be honest.
I mean, as I said, I think it's pretty common from another first-person shooter standpoint, and obviously Unreal is used in a significant number of first-person shooters, in fact, in case you weren't aware.
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty fair statement. Okay, so any
the other thing to consider is the monetization aspect, because that's definitely relevant to the longevity of the game. It's like, how would that skill system interact with a free-to-play model?
Oh, I could crush that, and I've kicked that idea around. It really goes back to what do you think a booster is, and what else can you use it for other than what you're doing now? Basically, an SP booster or even a fact war booster to a degree. All they are is they increase your general pool of either passive or active SP. What you could do is if they looked at how the skill tree worked, you could have a general SP booster. So like your passive skills almost, that's general SP. It applies anywhere at the same rate. But if you, depending on how deep you got, you could actually have like a, like a light weapons SP booster that you could drop into your active set, something like that. You basically gain specialized boosters that only provide you an additional SP marker for whatever that category of skill is, which to me actually makes a lot more sense, and you get a lot more variations in what you're trying to do. Like I said, just a thought. I think that's an easy way to monetize it. Plus, it also throws out something else that you can put onto a dust market.
Diversity of offers on the market definitely has some interest level, I would think.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I think it's one of those things where I kind of like the idea of a deeper, more complex skill system. Ours is actually not bad compared to, it's actually really deep compared to a lot of other games. But I think that there's a lot that they could rework and that would touch a lot of different facets in terms of both in-match gameplay and sort of the enjoyment of actually leveling up or character progression, things like that. Any other comments on this one? Because I think Zell had a pretty interesting topic we wanted to put on the table. All right, Zell, if you don't mind, could you take it away and give us a little update on what's going on in the world of Oculus?
Yeah, so Oculus made their big to-do pretty early at E3, and their big thing was, at least what was the biggest news to me, was that they're actually doing a big partnership with Microsoft, and they're going to be including actually Xbox controllers with Oculus Rifts, and they're going to do some sort of thing where you can stream Xbox games to your PC so you can play them with an Oculus Rift. Which is a little bit convoluted, I suppose, but so that was a big thing because Xbox was really the only platform that hadn't announced a direction they were taking themselves for VR. And as much as I think Microsoft probably will get there at some point with the HoloLens, which is more of an AR device, but I think that it would probably be capable in some variation of doing VR as well. That may be something that they could keep aligned well with what Oculus is doing so that they're cross-compatible, which I think would be something Microsoft would be into. The other thing that they showed off was, I guess, kind of an Oculus hand controller thing, which I thought looked like a smartwatch held sideways. Jay said he thought it looked like a phaser. And I think it's really got kind of like a warp ring thing going for it. It's clearly got some nifty tracking sensors and a big ring around it. And I see some pictures of people. I didn't watch the stream, for the record, so this is all like I looked at a couple of pictures and read some headlines, and I'm spewing like 5 minutes of rattling on in the podcast about what I came up with. And it looks like that you can use one in each hand to track your hands, which is, I'm sure it's cool, and I'm sure it's a little easier to set up, but it doesn't. It won't hold a candle to the disc battle game Cross and I played. Cross still owes me a rematch on that.
Yes, I will beat you at Tron and become the overlord of the internet.
You will not beat me. I will kick your rear.
This could be
Is this
interesting.
the topic that you wanted on the table?
Well,
Yes, he desperately wants a rematch, and that's the topic he wants.
Oh.
this is.
Mine.
I'm listening to nerds throw lightning bolts at each other. Jesus.
No, they weren't lightning bolts. They're little digital discs. It's Tron.
I'm totally on board with that. I still
The
think
fireballs and lightning were the other exhibit.
Yeah, I did. That's actually the one. No, I did try that one. Yeah, I tried that one. I didn't try the ship explorer thing that I guess had like a dead body hidden in there.
You
I didn't
you
try
can
that
spin ships in VR now.
Yeah, I didn't try that one. But the disc battle one, I will never forgive myself for not trying it until the last day of the thing, because had I tried it earlier, I would have cycled through that line for every time I could for the entire convention. I would have gotten so much less done as a CPM, but it would have been worth it.
Is dressing up and going into a forest throwing seed packets at each other not a thing anymore?
That involves outside.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just outdoors. I don't.
I'm clearly like if I ever go to Fans Fest and you guys are there, we're clearly going to have to find a gym, and I'm going to take you there so you can see what testosterone looks like.
Oh,
Actually,
will you
rock
be
climbing
finding your
stuff.
boyfriend, Jay?
Yeah, Cross is
dear
actually. Cross was. What did you get? You were trying to do, and you got they blew you off.
What? Oh, go snorkeling in the volcanic vents.
Yeah, see, Cross is like this fancy outdoorsman person. So
Which reminds me, someone in Iceland still owes me money for that.
you never got that back?
No, I've been trying to deal with Iceland Air, and basically they've been ignoring me outright.
No,
Yeah.
it's sort of culturally apropos then.
Oh, damn.
And we just went there.
It's okay. All you have to do is wait for 2 years, and maybe they'll have a plane crash randomly in the middle of an ocean when they really thought it was going to make it all the way around the world. And then they'll realize that maybe they need to support their customers better. Just trying to extend the metaphor.
Good deal. Oh man. So yeah, I wouldn't say that this derailed because we never really had a rail to get on with this one. It was just right before we hopped on.
But back to the Oculus
Yeah,
stuff.
Phil was like, "Oh, I got this Oculus Rift stuff I want to talk about." I was like, "Yeah, fired up, man. We don't have anything else. Go for it."
By Oculus, he means I need a rematch.
Yeah, I kind of sidebarred because I really want a rematch with Cross, but no, the Oculus stuff that they announced this week sounded really cool too.
I just had an image flash in my head that I probably am gonna have to like put my left eye out with a mechanical pencil. This image of Xel in a black nylon spandex outfit with like LED light tubes wrapped around his body.
I could probably Photoshop something if you really want to see it.
I think it's important that you do that.
I'll get right on that.
I'd vote for you.
That could be your new tracksuit skin.
Oh shit! Yes. You should probably talk about that. There, Toddy's post on Twitter.
That is pretty legit. Pokey did me a bro solid, and because he knows I am, and as we all are, really Deadpool fans at heart. He made a skin called the Dead Sin skin, basically for Jaysyn's Deadpool skin. And he did an absolute bang up job on it. It was a really high grade image, and he posted it. Rutati grabbed it and he commented a couple times he liked it. Got a lot of push on Twitter. And then I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, he posted back to Pokey and I on Twitter a Minmatar medium frame in that color scheme, because Pokey originally did it on a Caldari medium. It looked absolutely bitchin' on that on Minmatar frame, and I'm more than willing to spend much of Xel's Aurum to get me a full set of those. So Rutati, if you're listening, and we know you are, I'm just saying, I would spend somewhere on the order of near Denny Fleetfoot levels of money to get those dropsuit skins, bro. Just saying.
Yeah, as I said last time I was on the program, I don't even do the Caldari thing, and fair enough, I think that no one is as much of a Deadpool fan as Jay, but not quite as much of a Deadpool fan as Jay, and I would buy the full set of those skins. Kind of just have to.
Yeah, they look really cool. I still have yet to buy a skin because I refuse to pay how much they cost, but I might actually pay that much for a Deadpool skin because they do look really pretty awesome in the actual client.
Yeah, the only skin that I've got, other than the Apex suits, and when they ever turn the the stuff from the Covenant pack into skins, I actually pulled a Serpentis skin, the Galente medium frame from a lockbox the other day, which is actually a pretty bitchin' skin, by the way. Not that there's any environment that I can actually see it, because half the time in your merc quarters it doesn't actually show up.
Hooray for bugs!
Your what merc quarters do you have, out of interest?
Caldari.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the other ones have graphical errors, but there have always been graphical errors in the Caldari merc quarters since Uprising. I think they changed some kind of effect. I don't know. It drives me crazy. Things flicker. So the steps that lead up to the upper platform in the Caldari merc quarters, if you back towards where, if you were in Eve, the ship hangar door would be.
Yeah.
And you just kind of back all the way up to it, walk towards the stairs slowly, or backwards, and you'll see that the actual texture, changes. I'm pretty sure that's still there. If it's not, then it was before. And you can walk back and forth across a particular boundary, and those stairs just flicker, and it's really noticeable. It's not like it's purple, missing texture, but it's really jagged in one instance. So, very detailed. Always drove me crazy. I don't trust that murders. I kind of wonder if the lighting they applied to it somehow messed up other environmental effects.
It's dark as shit, I can tell you that. It's the root of this, though, is my snarky comment was really, it goes back to the fact of, if you add visualization options to the game, like vanity options, then one must have a way with which to see your vain ass. Otherwise, it makes really no sense for me to spend real money, a lot of real money, for a skin.
It's not for you to see it. It's to show off that you bought it to other people.
Exactly. Except here's the problem. What I've noticed is that in my merc quarters, where I get to see it, because you you're not in a war barge anymore. You can't see it, so you don't know if it's on. And then when you get into the war barge, I would say a good percentage of the time that I played last night, nobody's skins were active in the war barge when we were waiting for faction warfare.
Yeah.
It is broken and unfortunate. And I'm paraphrasing here, but yeah, we'll just say Rattati was not happy when he learned that bug was a thing because it was tested internally, it worked there, and then it, for some reason, stopped working when it was deployed. So there was frustration.
So they're still working on figuring out what the issue is then?
I think that at least some of it has been tracked, but I don't know if that addressed all of it or, why there has not been a fix yet as far as that goes. I haven't heard back on it more. I just know that it was a thing that was looked into and was established that was definitely not either a bug or quote-unquote feature, and that it was one of those things like this was going to be the rollout for skins, and that was cool, and then they weren't working, and that was aggravating.
That certainly would be aggravating.
Cross, I've ever told you that you're adorable when you're trying to dance around the NDA.
He does all the time.
This is why you like me then, I guess, because that two-step is like my standard walk these days.
I think last week was the best, though, when Xel said, I'm not going to tell you anything, and then Cross spent a good 5 minutes talking without saying anything.
I said all sorts of things. Just because Xel is bland doesn't mean that there aren't things to say.
You didn't say anything that had to do with the actual question.
That's why he's up for re-election, and I'm retiring.
There was no actual question except tell us stuff that was interesting.
Yeah.
Be specific and you'll get a specific answer.
Of course. We should also probably mention that Aeon Amati, and forgive us, we did not actually write an article on the blog. We should have, but Aeon Amati was running a design a skin contest for the community. There was
I
no
suggested
intention.
someone write an article on it. Nobody did.
Yeah, well, But yeah, so there was a
Soraya Xel's work ethic, ladies and gentlemen. He suggested someone else do it.
It's management material right there.
Excuse me, who exactly is winning the scoreboard for posts made on the
You post
blog?
the podcast. It doesn't count.
Yeah, also you post old patch notes. Let's remove all of those things and see what your score stands at, buddy.
I've never posted old patch notes, thank you.
He's getting there, though.
Guys, can I take a bit of a moment for self-promotion? My neuter feed will be at biomassed.org, is it, or com?
Net or com, both work.
Net or com, but we officially prefer .net.
Either one. That's how cool that is. So all of my Twitter posts, biomass.com. I'm gonna win this.
Good luck with that
Oh,
one.
Lord. Anyways, so Anamani was running a contest for designing a skin, and the community pitched. I think there was like 15 or so entries, and actually Jadek Menaheim won the contest with his Doomheim skin, and I guess CCP Frame and Rattati liked it so much they're actually going to be making it into an official skin, which will be released for free in the upcoming newsletter. So that's pretty neat.
That's pretty cool.
It was kind of a hidden forum post, and I know Frank posted on Twitter, but people who don't follow probably weren't going to catch that. So, the skin looks pretty neat. It's really just a 500 by 500 image. I'm not really sure how they're going to translate that into an actual suit, but I think it'll be cool to see, and I think it's neat that they're actually opening up to the community to kind of, or at least accepting a community-made skin and putting it in the games. That's pretty cool to note.
Yeah, there have been various murmurs about community getting more involved in doing skins. Have yet to get anything official from CCP on it, partially because I will admit I have been somewhat distracted in talking to them about other stuff. But this is me going on record telling Pokey that yes, I will ask.
Woot!
Goodness gracious. So,
Jay, I was going to ask if you have another topic in mind, because I have
only one, and
Okay.
I can literally almost drop the mic and we can walk away from it. But long story short, I would like to draw everybody's attention to the factoid that the principal filming for Deadpool coming in February of 2016 is wrapped, and we are all patiently waiting as they go through the post production and the editing and start adding some polish to the film. So we're waiting for it to start pissing Emmys and Oscars on this one come around February.
So Jay, I have to ask. I assume you've played, but I'll ask. So a friend and I picked up the Deadpool game when it was on Steam, really cheap, and I guess they lost their license and you can't buy it anymore. But nonetheless, we've been playing through it, albeit extremely slowly, on occasion. Have you played the Deadpool video game?
Yep.
What do you think of it?
I think it was actually pretty good if you like mindless slaughter, and they actually captured the character very well. I thought the gameplay is pretty vanilla, but it's actually pretty good. It's not bad.
Okay, yeah, we're enjoying our way through it. It's just we tend to play other games when he's over, so we don't get to it very often.
Yeah, it's a good example. I mean, it's definitely a single player, third person shooter, basically platform, like action game. I would the best way I could possibly describe it is maybe Tomb Raider for 12-year-old boys. Does that make sense?
You can't play that. You can't let a 12-year-old boy play that.
Well, yeah, you could.
That's what you could. That's rated M, man.
Yeah, I'm like I'm just saying that that's the mentality of the game. And if you know a little bit about Marvel Comics and a little bit about Deadpool, you get an incredible amount of an absolute incredible amount of inside humor that's packed into that game that makes it quite enjoyable.
Total sidebar, but I think that would be really amusing if the standard ratings board went around and rated neighborhoods throughout America.
I'd have a lot of fun with that. I would literally quit my day job and do that for a living. If I could just walk up and judge people, oh my god, and get paid for real?
You can't judge individual people. You have to judge the whole neighborhood.
No, but you have to judge the individual people, and then you take a cumulative score, and then you can go with qualitative and quantitative metrics on how bad they suck.
I don't know. I don't think
you've just officially used a more thorough method, even describing it vaguely like that, than the movie ratings board does.
This is true.
The ESRB, they have like a secret council of moms that come up with their ratings. I kid you not. It's literally you should think it's some sort of it's not really fair.
It's a glowing example of subjectivity, is what it is.
Subjectivity. That's a good way to describe how most of things work, particularly in the genre of gaming or media, is that somebody else is making a decision on what they think you would enjoy, and usually failing badly.
Would or should enjoy, which is the second bit is the part I particularly like.
Like I when you said that, I immediately leapt back to the patch right before FanFest, right before the Rouge Wedding FanFest. It was the big, patch with they released all the heavies and all this other kind of craziness. And I remember they did like an assault class like rework or something. And the best they came up with was like reload speed for the Caldari assault. And everybody's like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" It was like universally panned. Like other than like the one or two stray, Soraya Xel comments on there about how badass it was, but universally, I mean, just generally people just thought it was a horrendous idea. And I want to say it was Logibro, but it was somebody a fairly quote unquote well known dev, basically says, "Well, this is what we're doing, and we think you'll like it." And that I just remember that thread exploded after he said that.
I think that was Saberwing.
It might have been, but I just remember that, and I was like, "Oh, there's
I missed this.
no way."
What were we talking about again?
It was a comment about how game developers, particularly when they're not as in tune as they think they are to the community, or that they care to be in tune, they are often developing the game because they think you could, would, or should like whatever they're doing. Whereas the truth, as we've often seen, can take a very divergent path. And there was it was that throwaway comment by one of the CCP folks right before the Rouge Wedding when people were beefing about like the reload speed buff for the Caldari assaults being that's their racial bonus. And the guy basically had his let them eat cake comment, which was, "We think you'll like it," and it was just. I've never met that dude, whoever that guy was. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup, but just that if an email or text if text could have tone, it would sound French and snooty.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I personally think that the time you will see the best game development is when you're not trying necessarily, actually, to develop, this is what I think people would like, but when it's someone who's developing the game who has a real passion for the game, who's able to say, this is what I like. Because it's much harder to predict what a bunch of other people like than to actually just know what you like. And if you have a passion for the game yourself, then what you develop for the game is going to, I think, show genuinely through that.
This is why I'm so obsessed with the concept of game vision and universal methods, like the speed DHP ratio that Rattati suggested a while back. It's just that I think it's hard to make a choice about games in general with the uber hype train that is applied to almost everything these days. And with patches being ongoing, obviously tweaks will happen, and we've seen how that can sometimes alter the fundamental function. But if you can at least have a vision that is supplied, an overall notion of what's being done and why it's being done, you can make some kind of a, broadly speaking, true, but some kind of an informed choice on whether or not you'll like it. Because no game, no matter what it is going to be for everyone, and no method of doing any type of game is going to fit everyone who likes the game type in question. So it really is down to being able to make an informed choice about whether or not that's something you will enjoy. And you can't do that if all you're getting is hype, hyperbole, and sort of a moving target of the mechanics.
That is a pretty good look at this in terms of I can't disagree with what you said there. I think it's a little bit dependent on the type of game and the type of developer you're dealing with. Oftentimes, people rage against EA and all these other guys, and there's many things you can rage against them on, but through its good marketing or whatever, they do turn out games that a lot of people seem to buy, and for the most part, or at least their flagship games, they enjoy. I do think that you get more of the passion from the smaller outfits. At least that's sort of where at least my general subjective observation is.
Yeah, well, you get fewer of the reiterated things, Madden 47 and Battlefield 82 and whatnot for the smaller ones, but the main benefit of those that I've seen as far as people enjoying them is much like franchises and movies, where someone knows enough of what to expect that they can legitimately say, yeah, that'll be worth my time. Even if it's not highly inspiring, they'll at least know that it's worth whatever they're choosing to invest in it because they can predict what the experience will be.
No, that's a good call. The other interesting thing is it's when what I've noticed is when developers do things totally like in an isolated environment. And as I think to Zell's point, unless you really, really know the material and and you're almost maybe working from like like somebody else's developed world or their developed construct, it's really difficult to understand what you're making, or at least the reaction people will have to what you're making until it hits the public, and often then it's too late. You're getting your bad Game Pro review like as you realize the mistake that you've made.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums up the original dev team's philosophy on the game, kind of in a nutshell. The whole, well, you want A and B, but we really think you're going to like C, because they were so disconnected from things and didn't really... I don't want to say they weren't passionate, but it kind of seemed like they just didn't quite get it. And I think that's why Rattati has done so well, is because he's come from the perspective of a player, not a developer. And I think in that regard, he definitely gets it more than the last dev team did, which is apparent in how successful the game has been since then.
Yeah, well, I think the other issue that you ran into with that is that there was at one point in time, not only did you think you were getting A, B, and C, but the rest of the Greek alphabet, along with like some Sumeric and Upper Tenosian, script as well. And oh, by the way, they told somebody, I guarantee you that, what was his name, CCP Jean? I guarantee at one point he probably told Hilmar, yeah, absolutely, this is going to take like 5 months. We can knock this shit out. Like, too easy. We'll take a couple days off next week too. And then when it came time to stand and deliver, they determined, like, I don't have anything. There's no way we can do this. So then they get into this, let's just crank out as many bad things as possible to say that we hit the design marker, and then pack that shit onto this download that's going through PlayStation. It's when you're doing software. One thing I will say this: the changes that CCP has made on their Eve side, when you look at what CCP Seagull has done, if you ever want to like it's not even about video games. It's literally about just organizational management and the ability to apply efficient internally generated resources, i.e., time, effort, and internal monetary resources to a given business product or effort or whatever. It has been an interesting sort of an interesting time to observe CCP like Iceland over the last year-ish. They have changed dramatically in how they've been doing business, and watching how CCP Siegel has reworked their entire output, delivery, and input cycle from the community. That's fascinating. And you see a little bit of that in what Rattati does, by the way. He has a very different set of circumstances. But it is not that dissimilar in terms of what are the most efficient ways that I can go about this. And then he organizes time and resources against that, which is clearly what they did not do in the original design team of Dust.
Well, they were unfocused, right? We had some designers and developers that didn't seem to be on the correct page, certainly. But I think even bigger, the problem was that Xian didn't really have a scope for how long these things were going to take, or I almost think that everybody there, including, people you wouldn't suspect, thought that putting something in the game and then iterating on it meant putting something that wasn't mechanically finished in the game and then iterating on it, which is not really acceptable, which is really fascinating with Uprising, I guess.
It's probably a fair point.
And ultimately, that's kind of the point that I was looking at with Vision, is just that games, as with any form of art, is a subjective thing as far as whether or not you enjoy it and what you enjoy. So the thing that you need most if you're looking to have an enjoyable experience is not what is correct or what is the way to do this. It's how can we be effective at doing whatever it is has been decided to be done. And then how can we communicate openly about what we have decided is going to be done so that other people can choose to participate if it suits them.
Wait, Cross, are you saying that you're supposed to enjoy video games?
I know, it's a revolutionary idea, but I'm trying it out. Have to do something to keep it fresh for CPM2 candidacy.
You and I are going to have fisticuffs. How dare you enjoy a video game?
I know. I understand. You're my polar opposite in the political realm. You don't like to enjoy things at all. And I respect that, even if I disagree.
I mean, it's not just not wanting to enjoy it. You have to understand I enjoy not enjoying it.
This is like... I've got a total non sequitur here, but every time I'm in one of these podcasts and I'm basically silent because I'm basically surfing the web right now looking for things to throw out on the show, I listen to these conversations and I swear to God I have these like incredible like visual images of what all of us would look like as we're sitting around a bar table. They're probably like nowhere near accurate to what you really look like, but it's just I'm imagining Stadler and Waldorf from the Muppets arguing as I listen to Cross and Leither. So, and for those of you who are old enough to remember who Stadler and Waldorf were, they're the old guys that fucked with people from the balcony in the Muppets.
Best
Marley and Marley in
characters
the Christmas
ever.
special.
Oh man. So, Jay, do we have room for that? What I was
Please
thinking.
do. Absolutely.
If I go robotic, you guys interrupt me if it gets real bad. I'm not really sure how my connection's doing right now. So this is a discussion point. Don't have anything with a definitive conclusion, but I'm going to ask for speculation. Do you think with proper polishing, and that's a separate discussion, with proper polishing acquisition as a game mode, that it would serve better than Skirmish, particularly for PC, in terms of competitive game mode? To add some flavor to the beginning of the discussion, I've always felt like, I felt like for a long time, that Skirmish 2.0, the concept itself is very basic. It's, capture points. There are tons of games that have done that, but there are implementation details, both in terms of the game mode and in terms of the game as a whole, that have really made that mode difficult to be evenly competitive. Even the simplest things, sometimes the distance to different letters from different spawns is different. Like up to, is it really a competitive game mode or an enjoyable competitive game mode when the spawning system is so broken that basically whoever gets to the letters in the first 30 seconds wins, right? Not that that's the whole story of a skirmish match. Again, tangential. So that's the flavor. I'll open up the floor. What do you guys think of that idea?
Well, I will say I dislike the meta that happens in skirmish, particularly in PC, which is excessive trenching, where you're rewarded for basically getting in there first and then just setting up shop, and you sit on that spot the entire time and pretty much just, you're the brick wall they're throwing, feathers at. It doesn't work. Where with acquisition, it's much more dynamic. You're forced to actually get up and move. You can't just sit in the same spot the whole time. So I think in that regard, it would break up that meta that I personally dislike. Again, that's kind of a personal feeling on it. But I think that if with some rework, acquisition could probably be the best game mode we have. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that explored further. I think it certainly has some potential, as you said.
I think if there were a way to establish acquisition as a multi-point mode, that would be something.
Yep.
Also, a lot of the issues with skirmish right now, and since polish is pseudo on the table for the discussion, it comes down to map design and relative size, because Manus Peak, for example, is not comparable to Line Harvest as far as how it plays, which is not comparable to, say, the Bridge map, and all of that, even though they're like diversified as far as content by only a couple of objective points. The play is very different just because of the shape of the map.
I think you're if you limit the discussion to an either or of acquisition or skirmish, I see where you're going with it. So first, I do enjoy the acquisition mode. It maybe because it is different. I think acquisition lends itself more to perhaps the rating style of PC, whereas skirmish lends itself to more of you have to have a lot more on the ball to take and hold something. If you know what I mean, it would require a lot more, I think, organization in PC, whereas acquisition could very quickly, because you see it now. If you have like a competitive acquisition match, it's very much a big Zerg rush from point to point, and so that will definitely change how the quote-unquote PC meta looks like if you do that. I like the idea of having maybe both game modes in there, depending on the district or the type. That's just me. Or like if there's like a rating style of PC, I think acquisition would work really well for that, and not just because the name is acquisition and you're trying to acquire the other guy's shit. But I do think that you could probably have a hybrid approach where there's, say, 2 or 3 key points in a map that are static, that are always on. Then you've got, let's say, 2 other ones that spawn like acquisition. I don't know how difficult that would be to implement, but you have sort of like, hey, here's the core, here's like the like the district control center. It's where in the power generation areas where these 2 key panels are that you've got to hold, defend, take. But then you've got these other ones that are in different locations around the map that spawn that would give you both styles of play within a match. That would be probably my preferred way to do it, is maybe tie the game mode to the type of match, or kind of a little bit of a hybrid approach.
Well, here's my idea for it. We take something like how acquisition has the spawning and despawning point, but we line them up in a skirmish 1.0 sort of way. So you go into the first one, you have to hack that. Instead of a timer, it just switches right over to the next one that the guys have to hack, and so on, making defense points along the way. And we could use the teleporter functions that they were trying out to move the guys from the defender's red line up to the front of the battlefield.
It's an interesting thought. And so, to Jay's point, I would kind of say as an aside, maybe, is there an amount of polish that can go into acquisition at its core that you think would be able to the mode? I think it's a bit volatile right now, a little bit too volatile. So it could definitely use some amount of change to really make it competitive, I think. But, do you think there's something in that space that could change it for you to where it would be acceptable for PC 2.0? In a completely tangential discussion that Pokey and I had was about skirmish. Skirmish has a variety of problems, but one of the things that we tend to run into is that all that matters is about 5 square feet in front of the hack point. Actually, in reality, that's all you have to control a hack point, because of the way the hacking mechanics work. What would you guys think if it were possible? And I doubt it is, but this is just kind of an interesting question. What would you guys think of changing the hacking mechanics, particularly for skirmish, to something more, for instance, Battlefield-esque, where you have an area of capture effect, or even making a hybrid system where there's still a panel that hacking, which can accelerate the hack, but also an area capture mechanic where the team that has more players in a particular area starts capturing that point, but not as quickly as if they had hacked the point itself.
That goes back to terrain, at least for me, because if you can, say, saturate an area by Zerg Rush alone, and there isn't any sort of interplay going on there's just an open area like the tabletop in Line Harvest, for example, then that wouldn't really be an improvement as far as I'm concerned, because it just contributes more to the same type of Zerg and entrench back and forth that we have now in both Acquisition and Skirmish, honestly. However, if it were a more interesting environment as far as the sockets where there's some potential interplay going on, then that could have a lot of possibilities, like the mushroom socket, for example, how there are multiple ways in and out of it and around. If you had just the center was an area where you had that sort of effect, that could be intriguing, because you don't just defend one area to hold that, and you don't have massive lines of fire to hold that. You actually have to be reactive and aware to be able to hold a lot of space in that type of context.
Yeah, I can see it. One thing that they haven't tried is what if you had to get multiple hack points to secure an objective? I think that would actually be pretty cool, and then you could also move the panels around to a lot of different locations. So basically, let's say you kind of flip the script where if you in some points maybe relatively more valuable than others, not just from the gameplay, but literally they speed the MCC shit up faster, or you're conquering the district faster. But it might be pretty interesting. What if you had in the Gal research facility, which I know we all hate because of lag, but you go up into the upper deck where you're inside the science offices. There's that, for lack of a better term, a control room that's up there that you can get into. Great field of vision, and you can put a hack point in there. But you need to secure that. Then you need to secure one or two other ones in the same building to get point A. I think that might be pretty interesting, doing it that way as well.
Well, and that kind of goes back to something we did in one mechanic that Mag had. I'll use the sabotage game mode as an example. Is that you basically had an attacker and defender, and there was 2 points that the attackers had to capture, but the key was they had to capture and hold them simultaneously. So you could just hold one and then go get the other one. You actually had to defend and hold that first point while you captured the second point. And then if you were able to successfully do that, the consoles would go on a timer, blow up, and then you would move on to point C, which is kind of a single point domination style thing where you're all plowing into one, typically a tightly CQC sort of area, and duking it out for the final control point. And I think that, as you said, Jay, where you had to control multiple points at the same time to actually capture something would actually mix things up a lot better, and it does let you play with the terrain, and it does encourage more planning and not just rush the point and win via saturation. You actually have to say, okay, we need these number of people to take this part of the point, and these number of people to take this part of the point. We need heavies on the left, we need scouts on the right, that sort of thing. And I think that would probably mix it up and add a lot more depth to the game mode. And you could totally do it with existing maps. You wouldn't even have to go back to a skirmish 1.0 style map. You could just have multiple points that have conditions to actually capture them. And it worked well in Mag, and I think that we could probably adapt some of those themes and make them work for Dust as well.
Here's another thought that I kind of was just thinking about what other games have done. What if, and this could be done in addition to what you were just mentioning, Jay and Pokey, but what if they modified the hacking mechanic and just, instead of making it a panel, they made a slightly larger area and did it kind of like made hacking somewhat like planting a bomb in Counter-Strike. I mean, call it an Intosis link or whatever, because you know Eve right now, but what the basic idea being you get someone with a special piece of equipment into the zone, or maybe not a special piece of equipment, and they have to make themselves vulnerable for a certain period of time within that zone in order to actually affect the hack. Basically expanding the potential hacking area. It's not very different than what we have now.
I guess my question is what I'm acknowledging what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing, but why is expanding the area important? What is the root?
I was just about to.
I'm totally sorry.
No. It's funny. It's great. So here's the thing. Classically, it goes back to what I said before about like only having to control like 4 square feet of ground area in effect in order to protect an entire objective in Dust. We've had a lot of cases where the map design allows people to camp somewhere either in the red line or on top of a building, or a nook or a cranny or whatever, with a forge gun or a rail gun or a sniper rifle, or the mass driver. The list goes on, right? This is kind of the strategy, is to find somewhere that you can camp, and all you have to do is control that one area, and you can have disproportionate control of the entire field if your defender is not reachable, say on an elevation. And you can also have a lot of impact with particularly heavies, very defensive classes that otherwise are effective, but are made even more effective by the time that you actually have to end. I think that the map problems in particular are exacerbated by that mechanic, and so that's why I'm trying to think of ways to change the way the capture mechanic works. Because happens a lot.
Let me ask you a question. What you sound like you're describing is not something. It seems like you're coming up with a secondary solution to maybe what is not the real problem. The way you framed the issue, which I don't disagree with, by the way, is it's more about the physical location and the tactical architecture, literally like the architecture and the terrain around the capture points, and in some cases how that can supply defenders generally should have advantages generally, but not overwhelmingly so, or you put a position out there that can be keyholed by a rail tank in the red line and nobody will ever touch it, something like that. Okay, I acknowledge that all can occasionally happen depending on where it is. So to me, I think it's more about just moving the capture point around. Now, the other part of that is I think that there is something that we don't want to lose sight of is, I think it's okay if you have like one or two out of 5 points on the map that you can control in ways like that, which then makes for some dynamic gameplay. Like you've got, there's one or two like scout and or sniper team guys that are working to control or disrupt activity on a single point. That's an economy of force that you're taking away from your very finite number of 16 people to mess with the other 4 or 5 points on the map. Now, I'm not a big fan of, like I said, keyhole shots from a red line. I think that should probably be eliminated. But if you're able to effectively disrupt or control a very narrow field of vision, very narrow target area, like as a sniper or like a forge sniper, I'm actually pretty okay with that, because here's the reality. If I know that you can shoot into that keyhole, there's only generally a very few number of places that you can be, and I can eventually make you go away, or I have to figure out how to deal with you in some way.
Yeah, so. But like I get where you're coming from with the tactical dynamicism, and that was where I was originally kind of at with it. But over time, as I played more and more PC matches, you ran into situations like, for instance, with the forge gun thing. The forge gun thing still can be kind of bad, but it's much mitigated from the past because you might know where the person is, but actually accessing the area that they're actually at is inaccessible in some way. Sometimes it's not just the red line, right? Sometimes it's elevation. Sometimes it's you talk about a sniper position. Dealing with that is variable. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't on certain maps. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but my issue is that I think it's really hard to place the objectives consistently and correctly such that people won't find an abusable position, at least with the current map designs and the current mechanics.
I don't think having abusable positions is actually problematic so long as, I guess, two major things happen. One, the types of assets that are needed to make them abusable differ so that you have to have some diversity. And two, I think that in many cases, the number or the value of the objectives themselves due to the number that there are it puts them at far too discrete a weighting. And we see this with compounds as well, where if you can essentially defend multiple objectives from one area, that becomes problematic because then you just lock down that singular area and that's the entire match. Whereas the more competitive maps are ones that have the objectives spread further, have more resources and more particular resources required to maintain a hold on them, and some motion and diversity allowed to really have map dominance, which is kind of the problem that acquisition has in its current form, is that while you do need mobility and it's less entrenched than Dom, reducing it to one objective is putting far too much value on that singular objective and really flattens the gameplay pretty heavily.
I think, let me illustrate another example that makes me antsy, and it's made me antsy for a while. So the Biomassed socket. It's used on or I think it used to be used on the production facility. Do they actually have a production facility now? I think so. The one with not the green mushroom one, but the blue one, maybe is the best description. Some people say the towers map, whatever. Has that big central structure that overlooks an objective that is down in some pits and concrete corridors. This is where other parts of the gameplay kind of cause the problem, in that your counter, if people get up on this structure with, say, mass drivers or rail rifles, or heaven forbid, Victor's officer laser rifles, which are becoming popular recently. If people get up on that structure, it can be really hard to root them out, even if you do the right thing, which is take a dropship up there to root them out. Because of the spawning mechanics, it can be really hard to get drop-up links up there in a sustainable way. So, you drive a dropship up there. If you don't leave the pilot in the dropship, so that you don't spend an extra person than what you need, then your dropship is done once you get up there. It's really expensive, and it's not just, you can easily be completely foiled just by happenstance of the way that skirmish goes, one-on-ones, with different people, and it takes a lot of time. This is just an illustrative example. I'm not saying that would be, I think that would be fine if there were ways that I could sustainably invest in spawning infrastructure up there and say, I'm giving up something, but I'm going to push you off this thing. But as it stands right now, anything that the current map design and hacking structure that we have encourages a lot of this race to the X mentality. There's just, on almost every map, there's something that's not even interesting. It's just, you should get there with a dropship or on foot or, with a tank. And that's just it. in skirmish. That's kind of why I'm
Well, the point
searching
being that
for
in current
Band-Aids.
acquisition, it's the same thing. It's just smaller helpings of it. The cycle is faster, but the situation is identical.
Right. Well, the thing is, in current acquisition, because there's so many potential points, it's a little bit harder to. If you find an abusable position, then in all hope it shouldn't be constantly usable. If that makes sense. Like, you know, maybe you win one cycle because you got one position, but yeah, it moves and
Yeah,
you're no longer in a
but
useful
once you
position.
know the points, like yes, you have to relocate, but you can have people pre-locate to a given abusable point for the next thing, which is something that I see in acquisitions a lot right now. Is you get one locked down, and then you get the second one as soon as the cycle's coming up. People entrenching from an abusable position there in advance, and so forth. So it's really the same sort of thing. It's the same context occurring. It's just occurring in smaller cycles.
That's true. I think that's a pretty good description. I think it works out better like that because if people are generally aware of what the different abusable things there's a dynamic between putting your forces
In
in
every
different places.
phase, you have a chance to be the person that's taking advantage of that.
True. It's just less of a chance than it would seem because once you have abusable point A locked down, you need fewer forces to hold it than you do to take it. So then you can devote more forces to taking the next one unless the opponents completely cede the current point.
I mean, the other thing
Which
is
is
that
a good decision, I think. If someone's really ground in, and well, we can just get in the right position to lock the next one. That's a completely valid decision.
It is, and tactically it's very sound, but it doesn't make for very interesting gameplay to essentially say, well, you didn't get there and grab this in the first 30 seconds, set up to grab the next one rather than actually play or fight in the meantime. And then the third one's going to be where the real game is because the first one's whoever gets there, the second one's whoever doesn't get there, and the third one's where the game's decided. And that's a lot of dead time, and it ultimately doesn't shift the basic dynamic that was being discussed from skirmish.
I mean, the thing about acquisition, you're right. I mean, there's nothing that can repair the fact that the spawning system still really needs work. But I do think that the way the maps have been utilized in acquisition in general is a little bit less. It's a little bit less squished in a lot of circumstances, if that makes sense. Or someone can countermand me on that. But like, a lot of times the objectives are in more open places than even domination, for instance. And I think that's to the good because one of the map design problems we have is that the original designers of Dust like to stick skirmish objectives in tiny one-way hallways. Like, it's not just one choke point, it's like there are 5 choke points in order to get up to the thing. I think acquisition has a little bit less of that. And also there's a symmetry thing that is completely unrelated to all of this in terms of the map design. At the very least, if acquisition has the same problems, then fine. But I think that with the right polish, it would be essentially symmetric at the beginning for both teams. And that would be something that I would like to see, because something that's always minorly wrestled by Jimmy's with Skirmish 2.0 is that nobody talks about it, but like there are minor differences between the two sides of the map where you can spawn, and it's not like the defenders consistently have the better side or anything. It's like it's completely random. So
if I were, your point is well taken on that one, because there are some maps where it's much more exacerbated than others, like the Pipes map in particular. One side has a marked advantage over others in terms of where they can spawn and how protected their spawn is. My general thoughts on that is that if you are the defender, even if it's arbitrary in a pub match and it's a skirm, then all the turrets should be fucking blue when you get there. Like you're not racing, you're not having a, in the military parlance, a meeting engagement. You're already there defending. So that would be part of where I'd like it to go in terms of broadly, I I guess my question is, what is the number of objectives you should have in a PC type match? Like, how many objectives should there be? 5, I think.
I mean, the real answer is that there should be secondary objectives, but
Correct. No, so let me put it this way. What I'm going for is, I think, yes, I do think that some objectives should be worth more than others, and we don't do that. Like, there should be different types of objectives, and they, I think, should be worth relative value. That's part one. Part two, you should have enough objectives that you can cater the map, or you can develop your own strategy to best suit the style of play you have. If you have a lot of people that run super flighty, kin-catted up, like min scouts and min assaults, and it's like running guns Zerg all the way, then you need to concentrate more on certain type of objectives that play to that play style. And whereas if you're more into kind of the ground and pound, heavier kind of breach assault, defend kind of style, maybe there's other objectives that work for you. But I think my point there is you should have enough objectives that are meaningful in the map that it takes more than one single style of play to dominate the map.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. I mean, so because I have friends come over and I only have one PS3, I've been playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm, and one of the distinct things that you can tell is how it's done is if you have certain classes that are very good at pushing down structures and whatnot, you'll generally try and distract people on one side so that your specialists can knock down structures. Or if you have a really strong team fight composition, you'll force team fights whenever possible so that you can get everyone down, whereas otherwise you'll avoid them if you don't. And what build you have heavily determines how you approach the game.
I mean, one of the things I've always sort of bemoaned, and this is getting kind of, tangential in the sense that we don't have the resources to do this, but really, one of the other things that I think is a problem with Skirmish, thus in general really, but Skirmish, is that we don't have any different tactical utility secondary objectives that are really useful. Right now we have the turrets, the CRUs, and the supply depots, and I say right now as if we haven't had them for 3 years. And throughout those 3 years, except in Skirmish 1.0, which was completely different, they've been essentially useless on a tactical level. Like, it's not that you never use them. I don't think I've ever said in my life, like, as an FC, man, we really, guys, take 4 people and capture that supply depot. Well,
maybe not supply depots, but CRUs tend to be pretty significant, especially on the Rings map. Having the CRU that's within the main facility there can be quite critical.
It depends. If you can do without it, if you have enough people with uplinks, usually it's a smarter move just to not have it unless you control that entire area.
I don't know if I agree with that from my experience playing on that map in PC, which is admittedly it's been a while since I've played that map on PC, but it's such a powerful thing because you can't just clear it out like an uplink.
Well, typically where the uplinks go is up on those catwalks, though. And if you can get control of those as opposed to that CRU, usually you have enough control over the central area that, and I mean, usually that's not where you want to jump down from, but you want to have technicalities.
Jumping down
half the time.
Dangerous, and I don't know. I will agree to disagree.
Sure. I guess it's just in my experience, I'll say kind of in general, I've found it. So even if CRUs are sometimes useful, they're typically not useful in the way that I wouldn't rather destroy them because they're so easy to flip and sometimes inconsistent.
I would, by the way, you struck on something. I think the CRU is a good tool that is horrendously utilized in the game. I actually think CRUs generally, if you think about the concept of it, it should be something that you're using to establish a beachhead or to reinforce an area that you're defending, I would offer that CRUs should be incredibly difficult to hack, which to me would make them more valuable. Like if the hack speed on a CRU was similar to that when you're trying to reflip a point, where it's almost like double or no more than double the hack time, I think that would be probably more realistic and / legit, if we can say that in a sci-fi game. It would much more increase their value in terms of why you would want them. Does that make sense?
That'd be interesting, and it'd also lend a little bit more utility to code breakers just tangentially, which is an interesting thought.
Well,
I guess.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I guess one thing that's sort of floated around my mind is to make it a long flipping cycle. Like it's not a long hack in the sense of you standing there and pressing buttons, but it starts flashing like a letter instead of flipping instantly. Hold on just a second.
I think that would be good. The other thing I would say, Leither mentioned earlier the Entosis link that they use in Eve now, which is it's basically a modular piece of equipment that you fit on your ship that allows you to hack quote unquote a structure instead of doing an old school 4 gazillion hit points worth of damage to it, which can take you forever and it's incredibly boring. I would say that if you want to increase some the complexity level of the game, is that you really you make the hack times much longer, or if you don't have hacking up to a certain level, like a panel might be worth whatever level of hack it is, like it's a level 3 encryption. That means you're going to have almost no chance, or it's going to take you forever to hack it without a hacking mod if your skill level in hacking isn't up to at least 3 or something like that. I think that there's ways that they could use that.
Nerf new player playability even further.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you say nerf new player playability, there's also the component of think of the tools that you could then use to customize your districts. Like you could have, encrypted, whatever the fuck's on there, higher virus strength, as you upgrade your district or whatever. But to me, like if you're a new player, sure, there's probably some that you should be able to do. Like in pubs is one thing. I'm talking about like in PC or even faction warfare, or if you've got like that, if you have like a 3-point map, there's one point that's like a higher level point that is worth more. It's the relative value of the point, but it also should have a relative increase in the difficulty of securing the objective.
Well, one thing that I always found interesting about hacking in Dust that differed from other games is that you start hacking, and if you walk away from that hack when you're half done, it resets back to 0, which I was more used to the mag style, where basically you had secondary objectives or primary objectives even, where you would typically plant a bomb, the bomb would blow up, and then that basically meant that the attackers had control because it wasn't working and helping the defenders anymore. But the defenders could come in and start repairing that objective, and if they walked away from it, that repair didn't go down. There wasn't an automatic reset. And what that allowed you to do is that even if it was going to take a long time to repair it, you could still kind of whittle away at it bit by bit, even if you didn't have really strong control of the area, and eventually get that piece of infrastructure back up. And I'm almost wondering what would be interesting if we had a hack mechanic where it was more of a tug of war, where you didn't have to finish the hack to actually put a dent in controlling that point. And so like what Xel said, when you have you don't want to cut out that new player experience, you can still run around with a crappy hack fit, and it's going to take you a long time, but you can still make a difference. You don't have to finish that hack to actually do something. So I mean, you're encouraged to have those code breakers to do it quicker, to make more progress more in a faster manner, but you could still go in there as a player and make a dent and maybe only get it 25%, but then someone else can come back later and finish it up for you.
I'm all for the NPE, but I don't think that scaling PC is really the place to be looking at as far as trying to make sure the NPE is strong. It's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, which, I mean, I know we've been sort of migrating around from thing to thing, but as Leither initially framed it, it was a PC concept, so I don't know how much the NPE really applies. It would be interesting, however, to have that hack mechanic apply to either primary or secondary, but not both, thus allowing for different styles of play being needed to secure different objectives. Like if you wanted to have a thing that was, whether that's primary or secondary objective, did not lose hack as you work on it, then saturating the area with a bunch of players who aren't specialized makes a lot more sense. Whereas for the other type of objective, kind of what we have now, it would make a lot more sense to have someone who's specialized to hacking or focused on it.
I will say that one of the other things about CRUs, there are two things that I always feel like obligated to barf up whenever these are discussed, because I think CRUs, stationary spinning area, is a component of almost every FPS game. Like, there are some that are very simple that don't have the idea of being able to control a spawn point, but, many do. The other thing that really needs to change, but is like probably out of scope, is we need to figure out some way to actually have good spawn protection so that when you spawn at one of these things, you're not disoriented and shot before you actually get your orientation. And no, the cloak and not moving does not count. Because
I could buy that. I mean, I think there's definitely some things that they could work on with that. I mean, to be honest with you, there's basically things in the UI, like the actual heads-up display, that could probably be tweaked to help you with that in terms of situational awareness about what's around you. Orienting you to where you're at versus what you're looking at on the screen. Because a lot of times what I find is even when you go to like a ground spawn, not even like a CRU, just like you said, just regular old spawning anywhere, you'll inevitably spawn facing like a blank wall or some random shit like that, and then you're trying to spin yourself around to the right location to orient yourself to whichever objective you're going to. It's usually not very intuitive and mildly aggravating sometimes.
Well, go ahead, Pokey.
Yeah, I could even buy something where, I'll use a CRU as an example, where you spawn into a CRU, but once the spawn finishes, instead of your body just popping out, it actually goes to like a third-person camera above the CRU, and you can kind of look around and get your bearings, and then you can pick from 5 spots you want to spawn out of that CRU. So if you've got a guy that's sitting and camping the back left corner, well, then you can say, I want to spawn on the forward right. And that way you can actually, kind of defend yourself against those camping mechanics and actually pick where you want to pop out. You know which direction you're going to be facing. You know what's around you when you pop out. It actually makes the CRU a little more safe to spawn out of, because you have a little more control on what's going to happen when you finally hit the button and actually pop into the match.
I tell you what, like a total, this just popped in my head when you said that. You know what would be really, really fucking boss? Is if they had a small blaster turret that was with some very aggressive AI that was sitting on top of a CRU. So not only did you get the spawn point, but you got the aggressive small turret that's like in an elevated
remember
position.
Small turrets being in the game.
They were so cool.
Those were cool.
Well, and actually, what you basically described, Jay, aside from the AI, was bunkers, again, from MAG, where you had to push past bunkers, which were spawn points. They're basically CRUs. And trying to take those things was an ordeal, because that turret was nasty, and you either had to blow it up or just, swarm it so bad that they couldn't keep up. And even that had a mechanic where we'd have a guy laying on top of the bunker in heavy armor, repairing the turret to try to keep it up to actually help fend people off. And it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I think giving CRUs a means to actually defend themselves and let players, even if you want to have a guy in the CRU using the turret to keep people off of the spawn point, I mean, that would be awesome, because I think that would make capturing CRUs actually difficult, rather than just rush one guy in and speed hack it and you're done. And I think I'd love to see more depth and more things that people could actually do to make that spawning a little safer and more interesting.
I mean, altogether, yeah, the idea being that at the core as an FC, I have, especially back when the CRUs had less health, when I took control of an area, when my team took control of an area, I'd be like, hey, do we have an extra tank that's not super busy for, 30 seconds? Come blow the CRU up. And we'd own it, and people would be like, oh, it's going to be minus 50 points. It's like, we own it. What's up? I don't care. Just blow it up. Because right now, they they are sometimes useful. I'm totally not, trying to take away from that, but as a tactician, I have most often felt like they were just going to screw something up more often than really having a positive effect. So even as an attacker, it's like, how many times have you run up, taken a CRU that's outside of one of the objectives, and then actually proceed to push one of the objectives if the objective was well defended in the first place? Usually you would have done the same thing with uplinks if you were able to pull that off,
Yeah, no, I could see that. Hey guys, since we've been on for a while, just wanted to, because we could continue to rattle off on this one for a while. It's some really, really fun topics actually to kind of talk through, and these are usually like a good example of the over a beer / over a cup of coffee conversations that would be pretty fun to, that you could probably have almost reminiscent of like a fan fest, like if you actually had Rattati in here and we're all just bullshitting at a table just trying to talk through this. It's an interesting way of looking at the problem. You've got a lot of experience in the room, so to speak, and we all actually have a fairly diverse background in gaming and in actually our individual perspectives on how we do things. But I think we can usually find the commonalities in terms of what is the root problem or the root issue that we're trying to discuss, which I think is probably a good marker that it's an actual issue that needs to be discussed and addressed. So what I would like to do is, barring any other like serious commentary on anything, I'd like to kind of roll into shout outs if you guys don't mind. Is that all right?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okie dokie. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll start at the bottom of the list with Pokey, and then we'll push through our shout outs, and we'll give a quick pitch for CPM candidates hopping on and having a chat with us. By the way, Mossellia Delt had to leave. He had a real life thing that was going on, so he messaged us over in Mumble. He will try to be back in a future show. We were going to dedicate a little bit of block of time to him so we could talk to him a little bit about his CPM2 candidacy. So with that, Pokey, you mind give us a shout out?
Shout outs. I guess just do a shout out to CCP Rattati and CCP and whatever they've got brewing behind closed doors. I think we all have a pretty good idea of what it is. And I know it's probably a lot of work and really crazy for them there. So hopefully we'll get some news soon, but I think it'll be interesting at the very least. So props to them. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's tough when somebody like does a screenshot from a PC client of a Dust game and doesn't know that they did it.
Yeah. I just noticed that today. It's kind of fun.
Okay. Let's see. Xel?
I'm giving my shout out to all the Star Trek nerds I hung out with this weekend.
Did you wear plastic ears?
No, I did not. That is not a thing I would do.
Did you dress up at all?
Not this year, no.
Oh my god, that means you've done it in the past. Okay, alright. Leither? Leither, you're coming in broken and distorted.
I can't. Any better?
Vaguely.
How about now?
Absolutely.
I have no idea. If I do again, then just skip me. I'd like to give a shout out to Central Florida. I drove down State Route 40 a couple days ago, and it was just like driving through the Yearling, complete with childhood trauma. So that was really cool. So shout outs to Central Florida. Because if I don't shout out, nobody will, because there's nothing there.
This is probably true. Okay. Cross?
Shout out to the hamsters. Hopefully you will be able to be healthy and happy again and allow us to have squads once more. And shout out to the CCP devs in Shanghai who have been working so much lately that, yeah, well, as Pokey said, it will be interesting to see what comes of all of it.
Are you still talking, or did you actually pick your hand off the push talk key?
I did not, but maybe there was a hiccup.
Okay. Last thing we got was shout out to CCP devs that are working hard. Anything other than that?
And shout out to Deadpool. Hopefully you can manage to make all of Jay's dreams come true.
Yes, you can. Okay. Couple quick shout outs tonight to the cake lady at the Hagens in Olympia, Washington. Thank you. you know who you are, and the odds of her listening to this podcast are so infinitesimally small. It's amazing. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, if you were only in the Biomassed Green Room Skype channel, you would know. Part 2, shout out to Sir Manboy, who has spent several hours today perfecting his flying go-go plata technique. And if you know what that is, please email / message into Xel and explain that to him, and explain why he needs to learn how to master the flying go-go plata. And other than that, I think that's all I got. So we're going to go ahead and kind of, as we say on the show, land the plane, or i.e. crash the dropship if I'm flying it. And we'll bring episode 58 to a close. So, guys, again, appreciate you hopping on for Leither, and Cross hopping on, and Moss for